All right, welcome to the deep dive, where we help you get a little smarter, a little faster. You know how it is, right? So much information out there, and you want to get to the good stuff without wading through all the noise.
Exactly. So that's where we come in. We take your chosen sources, whatever you're interested in, and we really get into them, help you find those aha moments.
Yeah, those are the best. Today, we're diving deep into something that's pretty fundamental to all of us: food.
Can't live without it.
Haha, true. We'll be working with your notes from Central Conversation Focus and also an article called Food Under Fire, challenging the modern approach to health, lifestyle, and nutrition.
Okay, sounds interesting.
It is. Our goal today is to kind of step back from all the, sometimes negative stuff you hear about food and really get back to basics. Like, what are the fundamental roles of food?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we'll be looking at it as energy, as a possible source of healing, and also, I think this is important, as something worthy of respect.
Totally. Food is more than just fuel, right?
Absolutely. And one of the first things that jumped out at me looking at your sources is this tension between how we view food today and how maybe more traditional or holistic approaches see it.
Uh-huh. I see that right away.
Mm.
Like your notes say food as energy for life,
Mm.
which is so basic but so true. And the article also talks about how food is essential for, sustaining life and vitality.
Right. But then it goes on to say that food's been reduced to a mere tool of restriction, a scapegoat, which is a pretty different way of looking at it.
It's like instead of focusing on how food gives us life, we're obsessed with what we should cut out. It's all about restriction.
Yeah, like we forget that the main point of food is to give us energy, which
Exactly.
I think leads perfectly into this idea that food is not our enemy, like from your notes.
Right.
Though it does say unproportioned amounts can become poisonous.
Yeah, of course. Too much of anything can be bad for you.
For sure. But the article really emphasizes this idea that food has been victimized, like it's somehow the bad guy.
Which is interesting because so much of what we hear these days is about, like you said, restricting food.
Exactly. And even when we're talking about something like, say, a metabolic disorder, the first response is often to restrict, not to, nourish and rebalance.
Right, right. And the article actually asks a really good question. Who replenishes the lost nutrients that these restricted foods once provided? Something to think about.
That's a really good point, because if you're just taking things away, are you creating another problem?
Potentially, yeah. We need a whole range of nutrients to be healthy, and if we're only focused on what we can't eat, we might be missing out on some important stuff.
Definitely. And that brings us to this other idea from your notes: food as a healer.
Yeah, I like that concept.
Me too. And the article talks about it in the context of, traditional systems of medicine, things like Ayurveda, homeopathy, and Unani.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and they're all about using food to bring the body back into balance, not just restricting things, but actively using food, herbs, and natural therapies to heal.
So it's not about seeing food as the enemy, but as a way to support the body's natural healing abilities.
Exactly. And I think this ties into another point from your notes.
Okay, let's hear it.
It says, any particular food, when not beneficial for some parts, its replacement should be natural, considering the wholesomeness.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, if you're going to replace something, why not replace it with something that's naturally good for you?
Exactly. And the article is pretty skeptical of synthetic substitutes. It actually says, can a pill replace the holistic nourishment of a wholesome meal? The answer is clear: it cannot.
Wow, that's pretty direct.
It is. And it goes on to say that food is more than just calories. It's a complex synergy of nutrients, enzymes, and natural compounds. You can't just isolate those things and expect them to work the same way.
Right, it's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes. And your notes also say to avoid synthetic food as it is not wholesome, which really reinforces that idea.
Absolutely. The article also gives some specific examples of natural replacements, like using fruits, raw honey, or dates instead of sugar.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Or ancient grains like millets instead of, more processed grains.
Makes sense.
And using traditional plant-based sources instead of highly processed dairy alternatives.
That's a good one. It's like we're trying to outsmart nature when really nature has already figured out some pretty great solutions.
Totally. And I think all of this connects to this other point from your notes. Respect food as it deserves.
Ah, yes. And the article has a really powerful line. Somewhere along the way, food lost its sanctity.
I like that. It's like we've forgotten how important food is, not just for our bodies, but for our culture, our traditions, our memories.
Exactly. It's about sharing meals, caring for each other, connecting with our heritage.
It's a lot more than just, putting fuel in the tank.
Absolutely. And now, the article doesn't shy away from critiquing modern approaches to food and health.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it argues that medical science often oversimplifies things, reducing food to just proteins, carbs, and fats. And it loses sight of the whole picture, the basket of nutrients providing wholesome experience.
I see. It's like focusing on the individual ingredients instead of the whole dish.
Exactly. And then it brings up a really interesting point about powerful business lobbies potentially influencing how we think about food and health.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is it always about what's best for us, or is there something else going on?
That's a good question. Like, are certain dietary trends or products being promoted not because they're the healthiest, but because they're the most profitable?
Right. And the article talks about how this can lead us away from time-tested dietary patterns and towards processed and synthetic alternatives.
Which might not be the best thing for our health in the long run.
Exactly. The article actually asks, are we really moving forward, or are we simply shifting towards a nutrient deficiency regime disguised as progress?
That's something to ponder.
It is. And then the article goes even deeper, talking about what it calls the hidden crisis of industrial agriculture.
What's that?
It's about how industrial agriculture relies on harmful substances, depletes the soil, and ultimately reduces the nutritional value of our food.
So even if we think we're eating healthy, the food itself might not be as nutritious as it could be.
That's the point. And the article contrasts this with the benefits of sustainable and organic farming, which prioritize soil health and produce more nutrient-dense food.
So it's not just about what we eat, but also how it's grown.
Exactly. It's all
Yeah,
connected.
that makes a lot of sense.
Finally, the article talks about the need for policy reform to prioritize public health over corporate interests, support sustainable agriculture, and ensure transparent food labeling.
Yeah, it's like we need a system that puts our health first.
Exactly. And the article ends with this call to action to eat with awareness, respect, and balance, to see food as a right, not an enemy.
I like that. It's about taking back our relationship with food.
Absolutely.
So, wow, we've covered a lot.
We have, but I think the main takeaway is that food is so much more than just calories or something to restrict.
Yeah, it's about energy, healing, respect.
Exactly. We've seen how modern approaches, while they have their place, can sometimes miss the bigger picture.
Right, and those more traditional holistic views offer a different perspective.
Yeah, one that's really worth considering.
Definitely. So as we wrap up, here's a final thought for everyone listening.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about the food choices you make every day. Are you driven by fear or by a genuine desire to nourish yourself?
That's a good question.
It is. Maybe the key to better health isn't about cutting things out, but about reconnecting with the natural world and all the amazing things it provides.
I love that. Food for thought, literally.
Haha, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and, maybe even a little inspiring.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
See you then.